Adler said that all human troubles come from interpersonal relationships. Because there are many psychological loopholes in humans. For example, if you're really nice to someone, your relationship might actually get worse. Another example is when you give someone advice, they might not listen. But if someone else says the same thing, they'll agree. So, you've got to understand the loopholes in human nature when it comes to socializing. Otherwise, you'll end up doing the opposite of what you want in social situations and mess things up even with good intentions. Also, you can even make others have a great impression of you with minimal effort. So today, we're going to share 5 really practical psychological effects in socializing. These 5 effects are the peak and rule, the transfinite effect, the status effect, the Rosenthal effect, and the emotional bank account effect. Let's start with the first one, the peak and rule. I'll ask you a question. Say I ask you to think of a person, like your dad or mom. What comes to your mind, a person, or a moment? It's a moment, right? That means your impression of a person is actually based on just a few moments you spent with them. Your brain will automatically ignore other details of your time together. You can recall them if you really try, but in normal situations, you'll overlook them. For instance, when you watch a movie, how do you feel about whether it's good or not after you leave the theater? It comes from some touching plots, exciting scenes in the middle, and the kind of unfinished feeling at the end. If the ending is bad, no matter how good the middle part is, you'll think it's a bad movie. That's the peak and rule. It means a person's impression of another person or an experience of a trip comes from 2 parts, the part with the most intense experience in the middle and the ending part. Why is that? It's because to save energy, the human brain will automatically ignore information other than the peak and the end values. Daniel Kahneman even did a very interesting experiment. He arranged for 2 groups of people to have a colonoscopy. We all know colonoscopies are painful. So both groups went through it quickly, going in and coming out fast, and they were all in pain. But the difference was that for the second group, before the colonoscope was pulled out, it was gently left in the intestine for 30 seconds. After the pain subsided a bit, it was then pulled out. As a result, the second group said that although the colonoscopy was painful, it was still acceptable, and they could come for a check-up again if needed. But the first group said they never wanted to do it again. It's kind of strange, right? You see, the second group still felt pain even though it was a bit more gentle at the end, and they actually endured 30 more seconds of suffering. But just because the ending experience of those 30 seconds was better, they thought the whole experience was acceptable. So, if you go out with someone, like on a date, if you want to leave a good impression on them, you don't have to be perfect throughout. You just need to create a special experience in the middle and give a memorable ending. For example, on a date, don't just take your girlfriend or boyfriend to the cinema or go shopping. These don't create extreme and memorable moments, and no matter how well you perform during these activities, it doesn't matter much. You should take them somewhere more exciting, like watching the sunrise together. The moment the sun comes out is really beautiful, and you're right there beside them. Or take them on a roller coaster ride. If they're scared, you sit beside them. It's very effective because it leaves a deep impression. After the date, you can secretly send them a message saying, "Check your bag. There's a little gift." Their emotions had just calmed down, and then this makes them excited again, creating another peak moment. This way, your date will be very successful. The peak and rule also tells us that the quality of socializing matters more than the quantity. If you meet someone frequently or are always nice to a person, the feeling you give them might be just so, So, even if you're always good to them, there might be one time when you're not in a good state, and their impression of you could turn bad right away. So, you can socialize less, but when you do, make it really memorable. For example, in a meeting, if you usually don't talk, but when you do, say something really impressive. Make everyone think your proposed plan is really effective. And at the end of the meeting, give the credit to everyone, saying, "This is all inspired by you guys. I couldn't have come up with it without you." This way, most people will have a very good impression of you. Even if you don't give opinions in the future, they'll still ask for your thoughts. Now, the second effect is the transfinite effect. Have you ever had this experience? Your mom comes home, sees your room is messy, and asks you to clean it up. When she first tells you, you might feel a bit guilty, right? But if she says it a second, third, or fourth time, you'll get annoyed. At this point, you won't think about cleaning. Instead, you'll think, "I'm not going to clean it." That is, when people are stimulated, they'll develop a rebellious mentality. That's the transfinite effect. Your thought process is like this: at first, you feel a bit uneasy and think you should do it. But when you're reminded too many times in a short period, you'll think it's too much. Then you'll feel like you're doing it for them, not for yourself. So you don't want to do it anymore. Mark Twain once went to a church to listen to a pastor's speech. At first, he thought the pastor was really good and the speech was very touching, so he donated $10. But the pastor kept repeating the same things. As a result, Mark Twain got very angry and left, and when he left, he even took $2 back. This shows that whether it's good advice or a touching story, you should know when to stop. Otherwise, you'll make people annoyed. For example, when you socialize with someone and notice they have a shortcoming, it's enough to remind them once. They'll know it. If they don't change, it means they don't want to. If they do change in the future, they'll still be grateful to you. There's actually an opposite use of the transfinite effect, called the reverse transfinite effect. We know that when the transfinite effect goes too far, you'll get annoyed. But whether it's annoyance or joy, it can make you remember things deeply. It's all like a peak moment. That's why many ads do this. For example, the melatonin ad keeps repeating melatonin. You might get annoyed, but you remember it, and that's what makes it successful. Because the purpose of an ad is to occupy the user's mind. As long as they remember it, it's fine, even if they dislike it. Because being controversial can also make you known. Over time, people will become curious and want to know more about you. So, the transfinite effect means that if you're reminded too often in a short time, you'll get annoyed. But if something keeps showing up in your life, you might become interested. For example, my friend was being chased by a guy. The guy's way of chasing was strange. He kept creating chances to run into her. At first, she thought he was a creep. But after the guy persistently created these encounters for 2 or 3 years, she started to depend on him. She couldn't imagine not seeing him anymore. So, the transfinite effect can be quite powerful. The third effect is the status effect. What's the status effect? Sometimes, you might try to persuade your mom not to be deceived. But she won't listen. Then, if a master or a colleague tells her the same thing, she'll come home and share it with you, saying, "I realized a truth today. Don't trust others easily." And you'll think, "I told you this a long time ago." That is, when the same words or truth are said by people with different statuses, the effects are completely different. It means that compared to the truth itself, we often pay more attention to the speaker's identity. We think what they say is right not necessarily because it's really right, but because of who they are. That's why there's a saying, when a person is of little importance, his words carry little weight. If you don't have much influence in others' hearts, you'd better speak less. For example, if you keep explaining a truth to someone and they just don't get it, it might mean they don't value you that much. Explaining more will just make you seem less valuable. So, what can we do? There are two strategies. First, you can speak less and act more. Use your actions to show that your ideas are correct. Gradually, they'll change their opinion of you. For example, if your parents don't listen to you, but you earn 300,000 yuan and buy them a lot of nice things when you go home, they'll listen to you and be interested in how you made the money. That is, successful people seem to be right in everything they say. The second strategy is that if you have a good idea and want it to work in a team, but your position is low, you can find someone with a high position, like your leader. Usually, they'll be more receptive. Then tell them your idea, and they can change the whole team. And don't worry that they'll take all the credit. They'll remember you because they need you. Your relationship will get closer, and they'll start to value you more. The fourth effect is the Rosenthal effect. Think back to when we were in school. Most of us had some subjects we were good at or not good at. The subjects we were better at were often because we liked the teacher more, and the teacher also liked us. So we liked going to their classes and listened more carefully. That's the Rosenthal effect. It means that when others have high expectations of you or think highly of you, it can change your behavior pattern. In 1968, Rosenthal did an experiment in an elementary school in California, USA. He first selected some children from a class and gave them an intelligence test. Then he randomly picked 20% of the children from those tested, regardless of their test scores. He said these 20% of the children were very intelligent and had great potential. 8 months later, the academic performance of these 20% of the children improved significantly, and their personalities also changed. They became more confident and more eager to learn. In other words, they became more interested in learning because they thought they were talented. This shows that humans have a kind of superpower, the power of being given. That is, whether others have confidence in themselves can be influenced by you. You can make a person become what you expect them to be. So, I often take the attitude of really believing in most people. I fully support them. And they'll think they can do it because I believe in them. Most people's self-perception is neutral. They're not sure whether they can do something or not. At this time, if an external force firmly tells them they can, they'll start to think, maybe I really can, and then they'll gain some motivation. Some people might say, what if you encourage someone who's already conceited? Won't they become even more conceited? But don't worry about that. Because if you do this, they'll have a good impression of you. Even if they become more conceited and might fall one day, if you still believe in them at that time, they'll be very grateful to you. It means you believe in the whole person, not just their abilities at a certain time. You'll be their source of strength. When you believe in them, they'll try not to let you down and will want to prove that you didn't misjudge them. Most people in life don't have someone who truly believes in them. They're often being pointed out and taught, and usually in a passive way. So they feel that they're not being believed in. Because when you point out their mistakes, it implies that you don't believe in them. People need to take the initiative to learn, but that requires motivation. When you believe in them, they'll have the motivation. So, when you believe in a person, they'll gradually become more enlightened because everyone is smart enough, they just need trust. The last effect is the emotional bank account effect. As the name suggests, interpersonal relationships are like a bank account. Every time you have a positive interaction with someone, it's like depositing money. Every time you have a negative interaction, it's like withdrawing money. If the account balance reaches zero or goes into the negative, your relationship will break down. This account has several rules, and these rules determine whether you can maintain a good relationship. The first rule is that withdrawing money consumes 5 times as much as depositing. For example, if you deposit 5 amounts of 200, one withdrawal will be 1000. Think about when you have an argument with your partner or a friend. At that moment, you might hate each other. If you can calm down later, it's because you think of many beautiful moments you had together in the past. To cancel out the anger of this argument, you need to think of about 5 such good moments. So, try not to have big arguments because they consume a lot of your relationship. The second rule is that continuous deposits and continuous withdrawals are very impactful. When you create a great experience for someone, for a while, they'll have a very good impression of you in their mind, and they'll expect you to create more good experiences. If you take this opportunity and create 2 or 3 more good memories in a row, it will have a multiplier effect. They'll have an even better impression of you and might even become dependent on you. On the contrary, continuous withdrawals are also a problem. After you have an argument with someone, don't argue again in a short time. Because if you do, they'll think of the previous argument, and all the bad feelings will come back, and they might start to hate you. So, try to avoid continuous withdrawals. The third rule is that the timing of deposits and withdrawals is very important. There are some moments that can have a huge impact. At these moments, one deposit is equivalent to 10, and one withdrawal can empty the account. These moments are when a person is in a very difficult, low, and vulnerable state. For example, when a woman is in the postpartum period, if her husband takes good care of her, she'll develop a strong sense of belonging to her husband. But if the husband is unfaithful during this period, it will cause great harm to her, emptying the emotional account, and it will be very hard to make up for it later. Another example is when a person is in a low period. If someone helps them, they'll be very grateful. For example, when Han Xian had nothing, an old woman gave him a piece of cake. He was extremely grateful to the old woman. But if you step on someone when they're in a low period, they'll think you're a snob, and they might take revenge on you when they get better. So, when a person is in a low period, don't do anything bad to them. In conclusion, when it comes to interpersonal relationships, the most important thing is balance. Do the right thing at the right time. Be good to others, but don't overdo it. Be bad to others, but also have limits. This way, you can handle interpersonal relationships well and keep yourself in a good position. Finally, I wish everyone can overcome every difficulty and have a happy life. See you next time.